It is a breakout for Bynum. This is Fantasy Hoops. You have come to the right place. Lauren Shehadi speaking with our fantasy writer, Jamey Eisenberg. Jamey, let's talk about Andrew Bynum for a moment here. Before you were seeing him relied on more for blocks and rebounds. Are you expecting more out of him now, Jamey?
Well, I think this Lakers team is going through the regular season trying to find out what they can get aside from Kobe and really Paul Gasol. We've seen Lamar Odom struggle. We've seen them lose Jordan Farmar to injury. Their backcourt has been sort of a work in progress. And when you look at Andrew Bynum, he's been the missing piece, at least from their, in their minds, what was a championship run last year. They lost to the Celtics because they didn't feel like they had that defensive presence. But now they stick Bynum in, and they want to see what he can provide on the offensive side of the ball. When you look at him from a fantasy perspective, he's really a number 2 fantasy center because of his inconsistent offensive production. But if he can play at this level, the way that we've seen the last few games, then you're talking about a guy that could be a number 1 fantasy center and could obviously make the Lakers not only a championship contender, but maybe the best team in basketball.
Well, he's definitely playing at a high level. Also playing at a high level, Shaquille O'Neal from the free throw line. Back to the basics, right, Jamey?
Well, if he's hitting his free throws, that just makes him even more deadly. You talk about Shaq. I love what he's done with the Phoenix Suns so far because, not only are they allowing him to rest a few games, to avoid that lull where he goes through, the 10, 12 games that he misses in the season, they're spreading that out throughout the course of the year. So you're still going to have to deal with him missing some games. But if you have him on your fantasy team, he's producing at a level that you didn't expect because you thought of him coming into this year, in his mid-30s, getting older with the team that sort of is in flux. You didn't know what the Suns were going to look like, based on the trade last year, were they going to continue to be a running team without Mike D'Antoni there? Where was Shaq going to fit in with Amari Stoudemire? He made Stoudemire that much better and turned Stoudemire into an even better fantasy player. But now he's getting his own production, and they're going to Shaq. They're using him as an offensive weapon, and if he can produce this level, and as you mentioned, his free throws, that's going to make him a number 1 fantasy option if he plays at this level also.
And Jamey, perhaps those free throws won't continue, but it just shows how plugged in Shaquille O'Neal is right now. Well, talking about elite players, you can't not talk about Granger, averaging 36.5 points in the last 5 games. That's impressive, Jamey.
Oh, yeah, and hitting game-winning shots. Shaq could tell you about that because his game winner beat the Phoenix Suns last week. You look at the way that Granger is playing at this point. We expected this last year for him to be a breakout player. He was very good last year, but now he's becoming a superstar. Definitely deserves to be an all-star this year. Has really carried the Pacers, because Mike Dunleavy's been hurt for most of the season. But his offensive game just continues to develop. This is part of the reason why they made the trade, a few years ago to get rid of guys like Steven Jackson, to allow Granger's game to develop. And you look at the way that he's playing now, this is everything you could have expected. He was drafted really as a number 2 fantasy option, playing at a high number 1 level, and hopefully that continues throughout the course of the year. He's not going to average 36 points, but I think you could see him averaging around 30, and that's tremendous production from a guy you drafted, in the middle round.
Absolutely. Tremendous production. What about Kevin Martin? Are we going to see a lot of production from him in the weeks to come?
Oh, absolutely. This is, it was tough to watch him with the injuries, to start the season because, he was coming off a great year last year, sort of similar to Granger, a guy who took the next step in his career, and now he's producing at a level that you expect him to see, and then when he got hurt, it was tough to deal with that because I'll speak personally. I had him on a couple of my teams, and dealing with that injury, it was frustrating. But now that he's back, you plug him in, he's going to score. The interesting thing with the Kings is how is it going to be, what are the players around him going to do? Because guys like John Salmons have to take a little bit of a backseat now. We'll see what happens with Brad Miller. Jason Thompson's been a nice rookie so far, but his scoring is going to go down a little bit. So I think you look at Martin, number 1 option when he's healthy, and the fact that he's playing at the level now that you expected, you definitely keep him in your lineup.
Jamey, from guys on a tear to guys tearing up their body, and of course I'm going to go to Jose Calderon dealing with that hamstring injury. Where do we go from here with him?
Well, you have to ride it out. It was tough earlier this year. He missed a couple games, then came back and it was fine. Tried to come back the other day and now is re-injured again. I think it's something that they're going to have to let it heal. Let it get back to where he's 100%. This has been a frustrating thing. I'll keep it with the theme of guys who are breaking out. Granger, Martin. We thought this was going to be a breakout year for Calderon because of the trade. They got rid of T.J. Ford, expecting Calderon to be the option, the number 1 point guard there for them. And he's not getting it done because of the injury. So I think if you let it heal, he could play at the level that we expect, but you're going to have to ride it out.
Jamey, what about Josh Howard? We're seeing that wrist heavily bandaged. It's looking like he's in a lot of pain. Do you ride it out with him too?
Well, I think you have to start Howard when he's playing. It's obviously one of those situations. Keep in mind like a Tracy McGrady, you have to sort of just wait and see how he does. If he's going to miss some time, he missed time earlier this year with some injuries. We'll have to see how he's going to deal with this coming problem. The interesting thing with Howard is obviously he's really become the third option for the Mavericks. Obviously, Dirk Nowitzki is number one. Jason Terry has now become number two, and then Howard sort of slides in at the third spot. He's not having the year that we expected, taking a step back from where he was last year, and if he's hurt, that's only going to lower his production. So I still think you have to start him because he's a very good player, but he's not producing at the level that we expected.
Okay, Jamey, I want to continue with the trend of injuries. Of course, a place that you don't want to be injured is your knee. Al Horford dealing with that. He says it's just a bruised knee. Any reason to panic?
Yeah, it's not often that we have to talk bad news about Gators at this point, but Horford dealing with this problem, it's something he's going to miss this week, so I think you obviously have to keep him reserved. But the one thing to keep in mind with Horford, when he plays, he's going to be very good. So as you mentioned, you just sort of have to ride it out with this. Hopefully he comes back at 100%. The Hawks are having such a fantastic season. I think they're definitely going to be a contender in the East. They're probably the third or fourth best team at this point behind. Boston's still going to be there despite their struggles. Cleveland obviously is playing at a high level and probably the best team in the East right now. Orlando's right there, and I think Atlanta's third or fourth with the Magic. So they need Horford. They need him to be healthy. They're probably going to let him rest a little bit to get back and ready to go. And then when he gets back in there, you stick him in your lineup.
They need full production out of him. Jamey Eisenberg, thank you so much for your time. As always, we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
All right, and talk to you soon. Keep it locked right here on CBSSports.com for all your fantasy hoops needs. I'm Lauren Shehadi. Until next time.